Hello everybody, I want to introduce Patty. Patty is my test mule. I've been using this hinge frame in field testing for about 1.5 years now, since the first prototypes, and then we've had a few other members of our test group out there using them. This is a completely new concept of hinge frame. As you can see, the hoses on the three-way are exactly the same configuration as if you were using a slide frame. So when you put this frame onto the gun, you do not have to change any of your hose configurations. When you pull the trigger, the timing rod comes backwards. Release the trigger, goes forwards. It makes it super easy to install. If you decide one day you want to use a slide frame, and the next day you're playing a tournament, you want a little higher rate of fire, you want a little bit more consistent high rate of fire, you can swap out to the hinge, then you can swap back. If you're swapping between our hinge frame and our slide frame, you often actually don't even have to change the timing. You can just swap them straight over. It does depend on how you have the gun timed. With a hinge frame, I like to have them timed very closely. So this is completely different to any other hinge frame that's ever been made. It's why it's taken us 1.5 years of field testing to get it to the point that I was happy and ready to release it. What happens is we have a trigger plate in here, which works very similarly to the one in our FLE frames. It slides on the shoulder screws, so the trigger plate is separate to the trigger, and then the trigger has roller bearings here, and it pivots around those roller bearings, and then down here it actually pushes against the trigger plate to actually make the gun fire. If you look in the front of there, you can see that right now I have the set screw in the center position, and there are actually 3 different positions to the trigger. So you can control the lever ratio from the top point to where it pushes on the trigger plate. So you can change how the trigger pull is. This one is set in the middle, and it's about a 10mm trigger pull at the bottom of the trigger. Obviously higher up it's much shorter. So that's like this one. So you can set it so that it, and even with this one is actually set with the set screw at the lowest position, and set with the trigger with the set screw at the lowest position, you get the shortest pull, and it's actually the heaviest pull, but it's still lighter than any other hinge frame that's ever been done. Super smooth because it's roller bearings and it's a Delrin trigger plate. That's the shorter pull. This is actually, the amount that this is cycling is way more than you need to activate and fire an autococker. And it has the front trigger stop, and it also has the rear trigger stop. So once you get everything set up, you can completely refine down the trigger pull, make it the minimum that you possibly want it to. And that's the heaviest trigger pull. By moving the set screw up into the middle position, the trigger pull is even lighter. I actually have a trigger gauge. We're going to do some trigger pulling to show you on the trigger gauge exactly what they are. And now the trigger pull's lighter, and it's using this point up here to actually push on the trigger plate. And then there is one even further up, which makes the trigger extremely light, but you have to pull the trigger a little bit further. So we have those options just because everybody's different. I've seen 1 million people set up frames different ways. They all pull the trigger differently. Now you can have one frame and it will cover every possible option of how you want to set the gun up. Comes with our middle tension trigger return spring and our light medium sear spring. The frames will actually come with the extra trigger springs if you want to set them up differently, but in this configuration it just works phenomenally. The frames will come in matte black, polished black, and they will come in raw, but right now we don't have any raw available. Just going to be matte black and polished black to start with. This frame will fit any autococker, whether it's a WGP body or if it's an Empire Resurrection. You can put it onto any autococker. And the nice thing about putting this frame onto a Resurrection is, again, it's super easy install. It'll come with the hardware to bolt it up. You don't have to change this hose directions. All the hoses stay exactly the same, and it just goes on there. Initially, this is the only trigger design that we're going to have. We might open source the triggers later and come out with other options. This frame is designed so that the lower finger is in line with the rest of the grip, and you can easily hold it and pull it with just one finger. And that trigger doesn't come down and touch the second finger. And so you can pull it any which way you want. I shoot a lot of the time like this. Very fast, very consistent way to do it. all high precision shoulder bolts, roller bearing trigger. We have considered doing some other trigger designs, but this is going to be the initial release. We might see about 3D printable open source files, some other things. There are precision bearings in that trigger. Front trigger stop. The rear trigger stop is exactly the same as our FLE frame. It's all machined out inside, so just like our FLE frame, it's super light. Compatible with all T-slot ASAs, so you can just swap this straight onto a Resurrection. You can put it onto any WGP gun. Works with anything. The only thing that is different between the WGP version and the Empire version is again the height of the timing hole in the trigger plate. And the only thing that needs to be changed, like our other frames, is that trigger plate. So it's super easy. Even if you decide you've got it on an Empire Resurrection, you want to put it on a WGP gun, you're just going to swap out that trigger plate. Super ergonomics. Got our nice curved, real smooth shape to the frame. Compatible with all autocockers. So it doesn't matter if it's WGP, whether it's Empire, whether it's Inception, everything. All right, I'm going to go through and see if I missed any questions. 86 frame, probably not for a little while. We've been so busy just getting these done that everything else has been holding a little bit. I know some of you guys have actually seen me using this in fields and playing for the last year and a half or so. Been using it. I used it at Living Legends this year. I used it at OXEC last year and this year. Looking at what other questions there are. You could absolutely use this frame with a pump gun. The trigger plate is Delrin. It does have the ability to swap out the cam for the auto trigger thing, but because the trigger plate is Delrin, I'm a little bit nervous about how that would work with a auto trigger cam, and it would probably wear quite quickly. If you want to put it on a pump gun and use it without an auto trigger, absolutely it will work, no doubt. With the auto trigger, I think it's probably going to wear that Delrin trigger plate a little fast. I'm not against putting one on a pump gun and trying it and see what happens, but I'd be a little bit hesitant of someone with a heavy pump on an auto trigger and how that will affect the Delrin trigger plate. Trying to catch up with everybody. It is not illegal in tournaments, Kevin Fortier. Hinge frames are absolutely legal in all of the mechanical tournaments on autocockers. It is still dropping the sear, it is still activating the three-way. So this is absolutely tournament legal, as are all hinge frames on autocockers currently. These are going to retail for $239.99. We don't have plans to make a pump trigger plate at this time. Maybe that's something that will come down the line, but actually the metal trigger plates are phenomenally expensive, so we'll have to see how that works out. All right, so I'll show you one on gun, on Patty. So we just did a fun video earlier where I drove over Patty in one of our gun cases. Okay, so you can see hammer release, cock release. Super fun. I'm going to have to age this one so it matches up with the rest of Patty. This is my Predator autococker that I artificially aged. Love this gun. Again, the frame will fit any autococker. Inception, Empire, WGP, any cocker, and it is super fast. One of our testers actually said he had to stop using his Revolution on his autococker because the frame was too fast for it, and he had to put a force feed hopper on there. Great ergonomics. You can see. Trigger doesn't even come close to getting. All right, any more questions, guys? No, Brent, I cannot. They are being built right now. We don't like to show prototypes of things until we actually have them production ready and out in the marketplace. So we have got frames ready now. We're putting them together this weekend. The first frames will be shipping this weekend. Shipping Monday. So you can buy them in polished black or matte black right now. Just in time for you to get them on your guns, get them ready, and go shoot a lot of people at the ICC event. You can order now. You can order through one of our Inception Designs dealers. You can order through Inception Designs ourselves. What other questions are there? Yep, Shane Burns, you guessed what it was in the form the other day. How many adjustment points? When they come, they will come ready out of the box. You just put it on your gun and use it. You don't have to make any adjustments. They will come with the activation screw or the cam ratio screw at the lowest location, which means the trigger pull will be the shortest distance when you pull the trigger that it can be. And really, you won't have to adjust anything. You can adjust the cam ratio by moving that one screw up and down, but you don't have to. And there is a front trigger stop, and then there is a rear trigger stop, which you can use if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. So you can just bolt it up, go use it. If you're the kind of person that wants to tweak and get it in and get it the smallest possible, you can do that. We've had people make our slide frames shoot in just over a millimeter and a half of pull, which would be shorter than I have this one set up. But I like my trigger pulls a little bit longer. I find it easier to get into a rhythm with them. I'm sure there's going to be some crazy short hinge frame trigger pulls and crazy light hinge frame trigger pulls put together by the guys over at NFG, and anyone that likes to spend a little bit of time tweaking and tuning things. Kevin, yes, I will be at Ion with one of these. Dave says he's never going to stop shooting his Revolution. He's just going to pull the trigger more slightly. The trigger frame stops here, Jordan, because if you're putting this on any other gun, the regulator is right there, so we can't make a bigger trigger frame. But you really don't need it. You don't really. There is plenty of space in that. And I've got big hands. I'm 6'6" 260, 270 pounds. There is plenty of space in there. Looking forward to seeing it, everybody. ICD, it's going to be awesome. Rick Kelly, we will be selling and installing them at ICC if we have any left. I'm suspecting we're going to sell out pretty quickly. We are desperately trying to make more. There is only so many hours in a day, and we are swamped. Alrighty. So, to recap, you do not have to change your hoses putting this on any cocker. If you're swapping from a slide frame, you just bolt it straight up. It's a ball bearing race trigger with an overaction cam where the trigger actually pushes on a trigger plate down here, so you can adjust the lever ratio. Makes it super light to pull the trigger, makes it super fast to cycle the gun. Will fit any gun. So you can bolt them straight up onto Resurrections. You can put them onto WGP guns, anything. The only thing that is different is if it's going on an Empire Resurrection, you need the trigger plate with the timing rod hole at the top. We have them come that way, and we will also have the trigger plates available separately too. Comes with our roller bearing sear. Comes with all of our comfort grips, comes with all of our fancy nice parts. Yes, Rich Andrews, you need to rebuild your Evos, and we need to play together again. That would be cool. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, post them up for me. I will get to them all. Appreciate you all watching. Have a fantastic holiday weekend.